Hi all and welcome to another week of the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams and tonight is November the 2nd. Hi all and welcome to another week of the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams and tonight is November the 2nd. We're into November already. Where did this year go? Oh dear. We have some intel tonight. It's financially based. We're going to be hearing a lot about financials in the next few months because it really is getting very hairy out there in more ways than one. The threats are coming from all angles to various people. It's not just the good people who are getting targeted anymore. It's the cabal also, the Illuminati, the actors and actresses, the politicians. They're all laying into each other currently, and it's going to get chaotic. You know, we did warn of this, and the volumes of news now is it's what we all waited for, but I don't think we even expected it to be in this amount, even on mainstream media. You know, Clinton getting exposed, Bush is getting exposed, McCain, Pedoster. Yes, I've changed the name from Podesta to Pedoster, because that's what he is, pedo. And a number of other people are all being highlighted. I would expect 2 more to be added to the list next week, along with Mr. Manafort, who I don't think many of us knew anyway. But Huma Abedin is likely to be indicted next week. She is the lover of Hillary, the person formerly known as Hillary Clinton, and somebody else whose name escapes me at the moment. So expect 2 of them next week. Right, let's get into the emails and all the details for the show, and then we'll go into the usual news pieces. There's a load of op-ed pieces tonight, some intel and some readings that's been sent in, one from Kevin Annett and another one from one of our more literary members who wanted to pen a post in response to the Cassandra letter read out again a couple of weeks ago. So we'll have that tonight. Right, the email for the show is truth.honor.and.integrity@gmail.com. And the link for the show is www.spreaker.com/user/8955881. And the articles website, which also contains, you can also get the live link for the show and listen from this site. And also the archives of all the bigger shows are on thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. So go and visit that particular site. And we have a Facebook site, Truth, Honour and Integrity. And we have a Facebook social media alternative for those who don't like Facebook, at MeWe.com. Where are we next? The People's Club. The donations website link is thepeoplesclub.org. Thanks to everyone who donates. It's more than appreciated. Sometimes I forget to say that, but rest assured, every dollar is appreciated. Right, let's get into some news. Some heavy pieces in the op-ed tonight. Heavy pieces in the intel as well. But let's get some of the news that's been going on around the world out the way and see where we go from there. And one of the news that came out this week was CVS Health, which is a misnomer in itself. Just drug pushers. Anyway, the retail pharmacy giant is now in talks to purchase Th&I, one of the 5 large publicly traded health insurance companies, all keeping it in-house. The spider's web gets tighter and tighter. And the Wall Street Journal reported this week that CVS offered more than $200 per share for Th&I, which was at $160 a share before the news broke. Th&I previously agreed to buy a rival insurer, Humana, for $37 billion, but that deal was blocked by the Department of Justice, and a judge ruled in favour of the Department of Justice in January, saying that a combination of the two companies had been anti-competitive. Maybe that's a sign of changes. You know, a lot of these companies have been kind of knocking each other down in many ways. There's a war ongoing now between Amazon and Walmart, believe it or not. And a lot of the high street retail companies are being shut down by Amazon. And everything just goes all into one giant conglomerate. I'm hoping in the future that a lot of those major corporations will be broken up and give other people a chance to make some money. Because basically that's what they're doing. They're cornering the market by distressing other companies, and then when they are at a point of collapse, they buy their shares up for next to nothing and amalgamate into the bigger corporation, and it's one less competitor. This is the way they work. Well, eventually, if you're in control of many points of the money transactions, for argument's sake, CVS, they will have truck drivers. But if they employ their own truck drivers and their own distribution centres and their own drug centres, then they're collecting at every turn. And this is part of the problem as to why the economy is not doing too well. Because at every transaction, they are taking the money. And of course, at the end of the transaction, the IRS takes money off the people. Anyway, I could probably pull up about 10, at least 10, I would think, sexual harassment cases, but here's just the one for now. And the morning after 5 women accused veteran journalist Mark Halperin of sexual harassment while he was in a powerful position at ABC, 2 more women have come forward with their own allegations. The initial 5 accusers recounted sexual misconduct ranging in nature from propositioning employees for sex to kissing and grabbing one's breasts against her will. 3 of the women who spoke about Halperin is without consent pressing an erection against their bodies while he was clothed. Now, Mr. Halperin has denied some of the allegations listed in Wednesday's evening story, but added, "Now I understand from these accounts that my behaviour was inappropriate and caused others pain." Really? He's only just realised after he's been caught. You know, why does it take somebody to tell him that's not appropriate behaviour to begin with? Anyway, another set of accusers emerged the following day. Maybe Mr. Halperin will do what, is it Bill O'Reilly? The guy who was with Sean Hannity. Of course, he had his own sexual allegations, numerous, and he paid $32 million in compensation and then denied it. And then he got signed back up into the same job after his fake firing. So expect to see Mr. Halperin back. Or maybe not. Maybe things really have changed. Facebook Everyone loves Facebook or hates it. The world's top social media platform is reportedly seeking to hire hundreds of employees with US national security clearance licenses. You ever had any doubts who and what Facebook is about? There's your answer. Another answer. Along with the data issues, the privacy issues, and now the control issues of what you can post and what they class as fake news and what's not fake news. And they decide, like a dictatorship. Anyway, they are seeking to hire hundreds of employees with US national security clearance licenses, purportedly with the aim of weeding out fake news and foreign meddling in elections. That's fake news. Well, given the CIA has meddled in 61 different countries' elections, perhaps they need to go and deal with them. Should they not? CIA has meddled in more elections than the rest of the countries combined. But let's only focus on foreign meddling and ignore what's going on in this country. Seems to be the way far too often, in my opinion. And if that plan sounds sinister, that's because it is. For what it means is that people who share the same worldview as US intelligence agencies, the agencies who formulate classified information, will have a direct bearing on what millions of consumers on Facebook are permitted to access. Really. Basically now it's as close as you can get to outright US government censorship on the internet as one can dare to imagine. All very Orwell 1984, isn't it? It's the way it's going. The sooner we react to it, the better. Maybe all the people on Facebook need to just shut it down. All of us. I know it's convenient, but I've mentioned before about convenience and it costing us. Convenience comes at a price. It always did. Now here's a good news story, and a fairly major one in essence. We've been waiting for this for a while. It seems it's now started. The Department of Justice charged John Kapoor and 7 other current and former executives at the pharmaceutical company with racketeering for a leading and national conspiracy through bribery and fraud to coerce the legal distribution of the company's fentanyl spray, which is intended for use as a painkiller by cancer patients. The company's stock price fell more than 20% following the arrests, and Mr. Kapoor stepped down as the company's CEO in January amid ongoing federal probes into the Subsys product, another pain-relieving spray that contains fentanyl, highly addictive synthetic, yes indeed synthetic, opioid. Now, fentanyl is more than 50 times stronger than morphine. You need to bear in mind, in certain hospitals, when patients are in almost a point of no return, some nurses and doctors will give that patient more morphine because it speeds the death up. And yeah, fentanyl is 50 times stronger. And we're taking this crap. Now, if you ingest 2 milligrams of fentanyl, it's enough to cause an adult to fatally overdose. Again, we have the power with this. Go in your medicine cabinets and throw them out. Well, I've been on this one for ages and, well, reduce it then. Everyone can make their own step in it. If you're on 4 a day, reduce it to 3 a day for a month, then to 2, then to 1, then a half, and then throw the box away. And you've just saved yourself some money. A lot of money in some cases. You can't keep on knowing that these drugs don't work for us, and you're habitually taking them because the doctor said so. When the last 2 weeks, we've covered articles where it's proven the doctors are coerced into giving you drugs, and they don't know whether it works or it doesn't. I can tell you that 100%. A doctor doesn't know, A, what's in the drugs, and B, if it's going to cure you. We had Clive de Carla on twice. He went through the whole study of medicine and the training for the doctors and training for nurses, and it's 7 years training, and not 1 minute is spent training doctors and nurses in cures. Not 1 minute. So the idea that the doctor knows best is bullshittery. And it's just habit that we go to the doctor and go, I need this. Because they'll give you it. Because they're on X amount to get rid of certain drugs. Is that the way we should be living our lives? Or are we going to take personal responsibility and go, well, it's only a bit of a cold. I'll go and have some lemon juice or something. Lemon tea. We don't have to take pills. That's programming. If you're on pills, doesn't matter what it's for, unless you're the rare percentages of people it actually works on with no side effects. Anyone listening to the adverts, irritable bowel syndrome may cause diarrhea as a side effect. I mean, and people take these. That's how we're being stupid. Heart pills and all the other stuff. There must be a natural herbal alternative for everything. That's what the planet provided. We don't need their synthetic drugs. They're for the synths, not for us. Get hold of the pills, look at what they are, go and do some research into what they are yourself, and decide yourself, is it valid for me to carry on taking this poison? Because that's what it is. It's a poison. The vaccines, it's a poison. If you're getting vaccinated for Ebola, they give you an injection of Ebola. I mean, this is madness. The flu vaccine, at best, it's got flu in it. At worst, it's got all kinds of other agents in it. And we've got people lining up to take the jab. They're that desperate now, they're offering 20% off your bill if you have a flu injection at Walgreens. It is stupid when you look at it from an overview. And I know people will go, well, I've got to take these, I've got to take these. No. Look at the ingredients. Spend some time. It's your body that they're poisoning. and see if you can reduce, even if you go down to half. I'm not saying just don't take any. You'll probably find, as some of our members who have done it, you never needed them to begin with. It's all in the mind. Illness is in the mind. You can cure anything as long as you believe. So why do we need expensive drugs? Think about it, please. Here's another example of where there's no end to what people will do to make money. And it's the worst thing ever on this planet, that people will go to such lengths to make money. You've got generals wanting wars because it makes money. Bankers. Politicians. Wars make money, they say. It also costs people lives. Anyway, this is a new investigation. I'm glad this is coming to light, as painful as and ugly as it is. Has revealed that bodies donated for medical purposes don't always make their way to the right facilities. Go figure. Many end up in warehouses to be incinerated or dismembered using coarse cutting instruments like a chainsaw. This is according to a report by one of the newspapers in the UK. Thousands of Americans donate their bodies to biomedical advancements, hoping to help scientists discover new life-saving cures. They're not interested in curing us. I think we realise that now. But a recent investigation has found that the bodies don't always go to the laboratories. This has been revealed that many of these cadavers have been acquired by companies known as body brokers. Which are not regulated by any government agency, meaning they can do anything they want with the bodies. These companies dissect the corpses and sell them for profit to medical researchers, training organisations and other buyers. Body brokers usually target low-income families struggling with traditional funeral expenses and appealing to their vulnerability and offering them free cremation in exchange for the body. One such company, who's known as a body broker, is Southern Nevada Donor Services. There are others. It literally defies belief. In the UK, the Defence Secretary, fairly high up, the Right Honourable, and the man with all kinds of titles and even called Sir, Michael Fallon, has resigned, saying his behaviour may have fallen short of the standards expected by the UK military, and he told the BBC that what had been acceptable 15 or 10 years ago is clearly not acceptable now. No, actually it wasn't acceptable then. Ever. Molesting and interfering with people. What was acceptable 15 years ago? Dear me. This is how they rationalise their poor behaviour. Now, he's the first politician to quit following recently revealed claims of serious sexual abuse in the Parliament. And the PM said she appreciated the serious manner in which Sir Michael had considered his cabinet role. And Theresa May also praised the particular example you wish to set servicemen and women and others. The Prime Minister of Britain is saying that Mr. Fallon set a particular example you wish to set servicemen and women. Again, it just goes over the heads of these people. In his resignation letter, Sir Michael said a number of allegations have surfaced about MPs in recent days, including some about my previous conduct, and so I chose to step down. But why isn't he in court? Why isn't he being arrested? Anyway, on we go. France next, 2 years after alleged militants, often used term for false flag people, killed 130 people in attacks across Paris, in France has officially ended its state of emergency. This was replaced with the introduction of a new anti-terrorism law that critics say undermines civil liberties. Go figure. France got the Patriot Act. And the security law went into effect on Wednesday and gives police extended powers to search properties, conduct electronic eavesdropping, and shut mosques or other locations suspected of preaching hatred. Really? What happens if people don't like their government? This is the path it's going down. It's fascism. Because one person's idea of hatred is another person's idea of we're sick of being trampled on and we want our freedom. Maybe we all have, at some point, or at all points, hatred for the cabal and the Illuminati and the politicians that are trampling all over the people. But it appears that's not acceptable, and yet their behaviour is. Funny world. Some people in France are dreading now that now that they're out of the state of emergency, there could be a drop in vigilance, but it's the opposite. The French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe said the new legislation transposes some of the measures contained in the state of emergency rule into law with some modifications. Yes, indeed. Look at the small font, and somewhere around page 300. Then you'll find what it really means. Here's a good news story. Though some of these stories, whilst they're not pleasant to read out or mention, it's a sign of the times that major politicians, major CEOs of drug companies, Facebook getting exposed, sexual harassment in the news, and now pharmaceutical companies are all coalescing into one big juggernaut and being blocked. So it's a sign of changes. This is how we should go about things, and there is many examples. I mentioned about Louisiana when they were having floods, about the people didn't care what religion they were, what colour they were, what country they came from. They just got on with the clean-up. Wouldn't wait for FEMA, because that's a complete and utter waste of time, as we all know. Well, farmers in Iowa, what they do for each other, especially in small towns like St. Charles, Truro and Peru, says Lisa Brownlee. Her husband, Van Brownlee, died of a heart attack in May, and shortly after he had finished planting his crop. And 36 neighbours swarmed on Mr. Brownlee's fields on Wednesday with combines, grain carts and semis to bring in his last crop. About 235 acres of corn and 165 acres of soybeans were harvested, and Lisa Brownlee is rather thankful for the support given by the people of St. Charles. That's how we fix things. Where somebody dying in one family means a loss in another, whether you knew them too well or you didn't. We've lost overall that we've got a disconnect between the people. And again, it doesn't really matter whether you're different colours or different religions or different genders or different countries. The people are disconnected. And that's deliberate. But again, it doesn't mean that we have to go along with it. We know they're divide and conquer. And that programme, doesn't matter what it is, they'll find ways of splitting. Look at politics in itself. Left and right. I mean, what's that supposed to mean, like? And yeah, people use it like it means something. It doesn't mean nothing. It's just a whole heap of labels and bullshittery to me. Republican, Democrats, Labour, Conservative, Liberals, just labels. All designed to push people into smaller and smaller boxes. So you've got their alt-right and their alt-left. Again, what's that supposed to mean? What it means is we're going to split you into even smaller groups. And the people have largely fell for it. But what we have to get back to is like what the people in Iowa did for that lady. They rallied round her and harvested the field for her. That's all it takes, is everyone looking after each other, not competing. And I'm alright, Jack. As long as I'm alright in my own little bubble, bugger everybody else. That attitude has to end. If we're going to go forward, it has to end. So kudos to the people in Iowa for doing that. That's it for the news. I'm going to read something that Kevin Annett wrote and sent me about Reformation, the Reformation anniversary of the Covenanters post, spiritual eviction orders, no doubt, and legal notices served on papist churches all around the world. Proclamation summonses all lost brethren to leave the false Church of Rome. Now, this was sent out originally in 2014, called the Emancipation and Nullification Order, that disestablished the papacy. Of course, you remember whether it was a coincidence or not, who knows. It could have been a coup in the Vatican, or it could have been direct to Kevin's filing against the previous Pope, Ratzinger. Anna von Ratzinger. So he resigned. And now we've got Pope Francis. And this morning at Roman Catholic cathedrals, this was on Sunday, I think, or Monday, across America, Canada, England, Scotland and Ireland, members of the Covenanters movement posted public proclamations that evicted the Church of Rome from their land and called upon all lost brethren to leave the false church. The proclamation places all adherents and clergy of the Church of Rome on legal notice that they are subject to citizens' arrest for any future association with their murderous, criminally convicted corporation known as the Vatican. And the action, it's sad to say, some of the action was marred by incidents, including physical confrontations between Catholic priests and the groups of the Covenanters who stood peacefully outside the Roman churches. One Covenanter member, an elderly Aboriginal man of the Anishinaabe Nation, was assaulted by an outraged priest at an Eastern Canadian church. The assaulted man refused to press charges against the priest, instead asking for the latter to search his conscience and stop serving the thing that murdered so many of his people. Now, the police turned up and at several of the actions, but no arrests were made, and the actions taken builds on the Maastricht Proclamation issued on Easter 2014 by the International Common Law Court of Justice as part of its case against top Vatican officials, including Pope Francis. And the proclamation nullified the authority of the Church of Rome and the papacy under the laws of God and mankind, and called upon top Vatican officials to resign. Now, one such official, the so-called Black Pope, Jesuit leader Adolfo Pachon, did in fact announce his resignation from office less than a month after the issuing of the Maastricht Proclamation. And in the words of the Scottish Covenanter John Burke, just as Martin Luther's postings of his 95 Theses opened the floodgate of liberation, so too is our action today just the start of a bigger disestablishing of the oldest tyranny in our history. We will no longer allow child-killing priests and Vatican crimes to terrorize our nations. Their time is over. That was by Kevin Annett, and we wish him well with that. You know, Chloe and I have met Kevin twice recently, and a couple of our members came along, met him early last month. You know, it wasn't easy for Kevin. It's never easy when you're taking on established order like that. But all it takes is a little bit of courage. He gets blocked. Even the library where he did the reading of his latest book, The Fallen Four, I think it's called, wouldn't allow him to advertise it. He allowed it to go ahead, and then he realised who it was, and no doubt by interference from others, and blocked him from advertising the venue. All very sad. But lots of these priests and lots of these churches are now being exposed. Like lots of these actors and actresses and producers and politicians are also being exposed. And it's still painful hearing about it, the depth of it. You know, there's no getting away from that. But it's better out in the open, where people can at least find out that it really is going on. Of course, not many people believed us when we were talking about this years ago. That's not possible. Well, actually it is. And now it's in our faces. Right, we'll probably, shall I read? I'll tell you what, I'm going to read what one of our members wrote in response to the Cassandra letter. And that one should take us up to the top of the hour. Your letter, for those who, if you can remember, Cassandra was very dismissive of humanity, basically saying they provided us with entertainment. We didn't see the truth, or we didn't believe the truth, and called us little greedy piglets, hell-bent on destroying the planet, and so on. I do admit, when you see some of the behaviour, it's hard not to disagree. But when you also have seen the levels of the programming that's gone on, and the mind control that's gone on, and the games that they played, it's not as if the people have done it off their own back, so to speak, because there's been massive amounts of assistance in that poor behaviour. Anyway, here's a response from one of our members who wishes to remain name withheld at the moment. Maybe one day she'll come on a show and read it out herself. You never know. Maybe she should come on an evening with Thomas. Your letter to us was an assured message of your ultimate power. I would respectfully like to address a few ideas and thoughts that seem to be missing from your almost comprehensive assessment of our situation as you see it, if only to possibly help my fellow travellers along the way. It would be important to mention and remind everyone who read or listened to your letter that in fact you too are a child of a greater being. As difficult as it may be for you to hear that, and as offensive as it may be to hear it from something you consider so far beneath your status. This is, however, the truth. It is the fact of your very existence, and especially important to note since you feel so strongly about informing us that our very existence is solely allowed by you. It is difficult to believe that in your pervasive wisdom you would be unable to admit that you too are one more creation of the vast and grand mystery of existence. This must be obvious to those beings in dimensions even higher than yourself, but oddly enough it's also perfectly obvious to many of us little piglets way down here on the dark earth. And interesting how source itself cares not for levels of its manifestation, but gives freely to all, delusional gods and piglets alike. In consideration of the points you made in your letter, you would not seem so omniscient to us animals, as you called us, if you admitted your own personal dependence on a greater source. We know you could never do that. You want us to believe that there is nothing above you, but of course there is. All this defining above and below used only for convenience as directions are erroneous. By convincing us that you are our only and true connection to Source, you have many advantages, but this kind of message is terribly incomplete. Let's shine some light on it. Possibly you've heard this from others well beyond this writer's pay grade by now and laughed at them too. But let us offer the following for your amusement. For the celestial record, please be aware that we piglets are not now and never have been disconnected from the one magnificent Creator. Whether we are consciously aware of this or not, and of course so much easier to be aware of it, our ultimate link to Source goes well beyond you, your religions, your symbols, and your ceremonies. There is no use pretending or hoping it's not true, and there is nothing that you or any other self-declared supreme being can do to change that. I didn't make up the rules, and no matter what you choose to believe, neither did you. Appointing yourself as the unquestioned Almighty One and getting between Source and its creations, you've done a magnificent job of keeping our built-in and powerful connection to the one infinite Creator hidden for a long, long time. It does seem surprising that you thought this could go on forever, though you must have known the little useless eaters would find out someday, and truly that day is upon us all, whether any of us like it or not. You mention you do not love or hate us, that your words are said with indifference. Is your desire to have absolute control over us an indifferent one? If you feel indifferent about us, it would be perfectly fine if this desire of yours was not met. You do seem quite positive that you will get our cybernetic bodies delivered to your feet, and nothing we can say or do will change that. Will you be upset if this delivery doesn't happen exactly as you are assured it will? And isn't it true that your supreme level needing anything is actually beneath you? Is there an actual number of us you need to fulfill this desire? What if that number turns out is not what you believe it should be? Will you then react like the piglets do, with anger, hate, retaliation, or will you be indifferent as the Creator is to you? So which is it? Is it that we mean nothing to you, so it won't matter what we refuse to participate in your plan? Or is it that we are so important that you cannot allow us to refuse? Both cannot be true, yet you said we will have no choice but to submit. It does appear to be that you need something from us so badly. You cannot afford to have your piglets turn you down, and this is hardly the sentiment of indifference. In summary, the infinite Creator also allows you to exist. But what you have exposed here is that in order for you to continue to exist, you need us to help you. If this is not true, then clearly we should be allowed to do whatever we want, and if that means not consenting to your plan, it should be inconsequential to you. No answers are required or necessary, as we do not desire a dialogue. We assume you find this very amusing or just mildly annoying and easy to dismiss. Strange, as you can so easily predict our responses, we can easily predict yours. One thing is for sure, and with all due respect, we do not need you, and we do not consent to your plans for our future. We do need and want one thing: to continue to keep our connection to our most magnificent and mysterious source open and alive. We have come to learn that this is the most important thing any being from any place can ever do. Even as our parents, as you are called, you can choose to finally move on, to experience what is beyond what you believed yourself to be, and leave us alone. You could find a new way to create and enjoy the ride that would be superior to this little control experiment you've been running throughout the galaxies for eons already. Despite the fact that we will not be part of your future endeavours, good luck on your journey. May you continue to enjoy the love and light of our one infinite Creator. Yours sincerely, the Piglet, PhD. Right, that should take us nicely up to a music break. And as that last letter said, we don't care. We have our own connection. And if we start performing like the people of Th&I, all these fun and games, sideshows, nothing else matters. What matters is us, not them. This is going out for Terry. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour. this hour's packed with all kinds of pieces. There's all kinds of news going on and a little bit of intel. Where do we start? Oh, not so nice friends, the Rothschilds again. Before I start this, people have to. Some people have difficulty believing that they're struggling for funds. They can't possibly. Well, why are they pulling so many bogus scams if they haven't got plenty of money? Donations, another one, no doubt, going out for New York. Another one probably in Colorado from last night. And there'll be another one. In fact, there'll be more than one. We warned of this 2 months ago that they would ramp up these events, and they've ramped them up. The bigger events, 7 of which were planned, have all been prevented to date. They wanted another 9/11 or bigger. I suspect they won't get that, but they'll create these mini events, and it's not many for the people who have died or the trauma that people face who attend these, notwithstanding some of them being actors, as we all know. But Rothschilds and Bitcoin are quite, frankly, that scam is about to implode. Deliberately, I might add. And, well, the concept of Bitcoin, to me, I find it mind-boggling. And again, it's another get-rich-quick scheme that only the elites are able to access, because the chances of the average everyday folk making huge amounts of it is slim to none. And like I said, this is a further example of the desperation of the Rothschilds and others to raise funds. And I just wish the general public would not so willingly support it. The Rothschilds have cash flow issues. There's no question of that. And so the concept of Bitcoin is they take your hard-earned cash on the premise they will give you a healthy and unrealistic return. Now, we'd all like that. 100% return or 1,000% return, and we all get rich very quickly. It doesn't work like that. You know that now. There's been a raft of scams in the alternative media that have been highlighted and taken down in most cases. So in exchange for your cash, you get given tokens on a computer. Just think about that for a moment, and the sheer stupidity of it. You get tokens on a computer. It's a bit like a poker game, isn't it? You give cash, they give you tokens. Yeah. At least with the dinars, even when they were bogus, you had some paper currency in your hand. It was still a scam. But you're getting tokens. This and other cryptocurrencies, to me, is utter madness. It really is utter madness. And it's another example of corralling people into a way, get rich quick, and the people only seeing the dollar signs or the pound signs or the euro signs at the end of the tunnel. No, what's at the end of the tunnel is the ultimate goal of the cabal, which is a cashless society. Bear in mind, every American, it's not just people who listen to this show, every American is classed as an enemy of state. So what if they decide when you've got no cash that they don't like you? Yes. Press delete. Then what are you going to do? Hand in your dinars, your tokens from bitcoins? Think about it, is what I'm asking you to do. Start thinking and acting different. Anyway, the Rothschilds are saying that they have sold 16 million bitcoins, which is bullshittery at its finest, because it only shows 7 million in circulation. Oops, they can't do maths either. And even that is steadily declining. And this week they were falsifying documents to the SEC and the US Commodities Trading Commission in order to get Bitcoin registered as an actual commodity. I'm going to register my old Monopoly money. That's the same value. And use it like a gold and or silver alternative. Really. For those who don't know, Bitcoin also has another darker purpose. Data mining. Bitcoin mines metadata. All that use credit cards, what site you visit, when you use it to buy something, it mines that too. It's mining the stock market. Also, people who complain about Facebook, and we've covered that earlier, and Google. What I've been told this week is you haven't seen anything like it. What's on its servers, the Bitcoin. Massive, massive data mining. And the sad part of it all is people are paying them to do it. They are paying people to put their personal information from their computers and all their contacts onto, wait for it, a Rothschild's private server. So for those of you who don't know the definition of mining Bitcoin, there's your answer. One more piece of intel. Again, it's more to do with the financial. So they failed with the United States note. And I can now inform you they've failed with the TRN, despite what some goons are telling you on the internet. The TRN has failed as no one is buying it. They can't sell it. No one's interested in it. So, lo and behold, you'll have a new term to come up with, and they've come up with a new one. And the latest round of financial bullshittery is called the TR coin, Treasury Reserve Coin. And they're trying to bring that out now instead of the Bitcoin, as the Bitcoin is being planned to crash. Bitcoin will crash before the first quarter. Now what they're trying to do is get the value of the Bitcoin to be 1 trillion and use it as a backup to the United States dollar. And then they will launch a hostile takeover of the United States of America. That's what the Rothschilds are up to, and the Clintons, or the entity known as Clinton, as in Android. And it's time the military quit playing games. Drake's apparently reported the military won't intervene. these people seem to have forgotten it's their duty to protect the people and the country. Otherwise, what are you there for? Vast amounts of our taxpayer money goes on military and war. And when we need them, not the clowns or the Rothschilds, you know, us, the taxpayers, when we need them, according to Drake, they don't want to know. Really. Now, some people will cite the Constitution, except we're not under the organic Constitution. I've said that many, many times. There's not apart from Kissinger and a few others with their anti-aging techniques from children's endocrine glands. There's not a single person in America who's alive when we were under the organic Constitution. There's also not a single person in America who was alive when we had the last real American government. It was 1871. Now, there's the other thing, is it posse comitatus? If I've got that correct. It was covered in an episode of The Event. I was called to watch the Event series again. That was out 7 years ago. To see, I remember chunks of it, but there was portions of it that when you look back now and the stuff we've learnt over the last 7 years, suddenly makes a lot more sense. And that was mentioned. The military can't intervene on our soil. That law was done 130 years ago. Not too far after the Constitution and the American government was shut down. It wasn't for our benefit, was it? So if the military is not for our benefit, then why are we paying for it? The people need you to grow a set of balls and step in. The people in this country have suffered enough, and let's get it right. The people in other countries have suffered enough at the behest of the so-called US military. It's way past time you started looking after the people who pay for you. It's not the Rothschilds or any family. It's the American people you swore to protect. You're not doing it. In fact, if events, a video I was shown this week, which appears to be correct, and I mentioned a post 2 weeks ago. Is this a smoking gun? Question mark. When what appeared to be a craft right next to the Mandalay Bay, and it arrived next to the Mandalay Bay just as the shooting started. Was that the smoking gun? Well, another video was surfaced that was taken from the other side of the city, showing what appears to be a helicopter shooting at the people. So, you can't have it both ways. That would suggest elements in the United States military are firing at its people, which goes against the posse comitatus. So if you can break the rules there, you can also break the rules the other way and turf out these rogue elements out of our country and get on with the job of rebuilding people's lives. Where you'll get badges for helping people, not killing them. Enough's enough. Right, let's get into some op-ed pieces. Of course, Corey, not the blue chicken one, Corey Feldman has made some waves across the internet over the past few weeks, and some people are supportive and some people are going, hang on a minute, what's going on here? I did a small update for those of you who don't go on the Facebook. Basically, this is what I wrote with added pieces into it. Hollywood and its subsidiary Vancouver are rampant with pedophilia. Both of them. Absolutely. Vancouver is the new Hollywood. You look at all the shows. Chloe tells me, because Chloe used to live there. That's in Vancouver. That's in Vancouver. Or that was filmed in Vancouver. It's rampant with pedophilia, both camps. Now, Mr. Feldman, who I have the utmost sympathy and empathy with on the abuse he suffered, let's get that right before we go into it. But he outed this a long time ago, and it still lives today. So the question remains is, why is Corey perceiving he's in more trouble now than any time in the past since he exposed it? What's changed? Well, what has changed is that more people are now open to it. So why is he feeling he's in more trouble now than when he outed it when it was uncomfortable to out? That really doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, we had the donations from the public brought into it, and that's when I smelt a rat. Let's be honest. We've covered the Rothschilds and the Bitcoin and the events donations. None of it's going to the people of Puerto Rico or Florida or Texas or the new one for New York or the ones in Barcelona, London, Manchester. No, it's going into their pockets again to keep them afloat. So Mr. Feldman wants 10 million to make a film. Hasn't he got enough fellow abused friends in Hollywood with plenty of money to support him to do that? Why won't they fund it? Why is it always the public that has to fund it? Now, like I said, against the backdrop of false flag event donations, ex-presidents touting for donations, and now this donation event, that makes me wonder and very, very suspicious, I have to say. Can it be genuine in what he's stating and why he needs support? Yes, it can. But the biggest question that needs to be asked is, where were all these Hollywood people with all their wealth when it's happening to the general public? Why is it more important that Corey Feldman's being abused than the girl down the road? Because it isn't. Has Hollywood supported us when we've needed it? No. They just charge exorbitant rates 100 million to do a film, and we pay for it. Yet again. And like I said, where were they when Corey outed what was going on in Hollywood all them years ago? No one spoke up for them then. No one then came forward and says, yes, I was abused by that because it's safety in numbers. It's a bit like the Corey Good. I outed him when he was at his peak because it was the right thing to do, because what he was pulling was a scam and a stunt. But everyone ignored it until 2 years later when safety in numbers came forward. And now it's commonly accepted, by most anyway, that Corey Good's bogus. Same thing applied here. Where were all these people that are coming out now when Corey needed help then? Kind of stinks to me. Saw an article this week. It was a music article, and I've kind of touched on this before, but I'm going to go through a few songs because the heavy rock music has largely been denigrated in society, and the people who follow it classed as devil worshippers, and yet so many of their songs, I've picked just 4, covers aspects of what's going on in life that was telling you as far back as the early 70s. Now, most people in universities, according to a study, there are a lot more people, intelligent people in university in 1970 than there is in 2017, followed heavy rock groups. Why? Because they were telling them something. So many examples. Let's take Kashmir, Led Zeppelin. You wanted to know about E.T. Disclosure. Here's the opening words for Kashmir. Oh, let the sun beat down upon my face and stars fill my dream. I am a traveller of both time and space, to be where I have been, to sit with the elders of the gentle race. This world is seldom seen, they talk of days for which they sit and wait, and all will be revealed. It may not have made sense to many back in the early 70s. It makes an awful lot more sense now, does it not? And then in 1970, Black Sabbath, War Pigs. Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerers of death's construction. In the fields, the bodies burning as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Those lyrics were ahead of their time, because we can all align with those lyrics now. Death and hatred to mankind, the war machine, poisoning the brainwashed minds. And then the next verse, favourite of mine, or the next 2. Politicians hide themselves away. They only started the war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave that role for the poor. Exactly. Time will tell on their powered minds, making war just for fun, treating people just like pawns in chess. Wait until their judgment day comes. Their judgment day is close. They know it, and we know it. Now in darkness the world stops turning, ashes where the body's burning. No more war pigs have the power. Hand of God has struck the hour. Day of judgment, God is calling. On their knees the war pigs crawling, begging mercies for their sins. Satan laughing spreads his wings. Again, does that sound like devil worship to you? Kashmir, ET disclosure, war pigs telling you who the real problem are, the generals. Of course, have puppet strings. Now, the third one's the wall. There's not many words in that particular song. We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. No dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teachers leave them kids alone. Again, this was 47-ish years ago, 45 years ago, whenever it was. Telling you about the corruption of the education system. Again, those words ring rather true and loud now. And then there's just a personal favourite of mine, the song Heaven and Hell, sung by the legendary, to me anyway, second only to Mr. Coverdale, Ronnie James Dio. The devil is never a maker. The less that you give, you're a taker. The lover of life's not a sinner. The ending is just the beginner. And this is a key line. The closer you get to the meaning, the sooner you'll know that you're dreaming. Well, if it seems to be real, it's illusion. For every moment of truth, there's confusion in life. Love can be seen as the answer, but nobody bleeds for the dancer. They say that life's a carousel, spinning fast, you've got to ride it well. No, life's like a carousel now. The world is full of kings and queens who blind your eyes and steal your dreams. It's heaven and hell. Oh yeah, the people of titles. People of own self-importance because their blood's a bit different or their genetics a bit different, or they just think that I'm better than everybody else. Blind your eyes and steal your dreams. They'll tell you black is really white, the moon is just the sun at night, and when you walk in golden halls, you get to keep the gold that falls. It's heaven and hell. Does that really sound like devil worship to you? Because that's what it was portrayed as, and that's why it got shut down, because there was a lot of intelligent writers in those rock groups of the time in the early 70s. Of course, those of you that followed around that time know it wasn't commercialised. So it was easy to discredit because it wasn't commercialised. And then the hair bands, as we know it, Bon Jovi and Poison, started making it popular, and even Whitesnake went commercialised, and that was the end of it. Punk rock came in and desecrated things and sang stuff that nobody understood a single word they were saying, because the beat was too loud. And then death metal came in and all that and all that and the whole genre was lost. But we should always look back at the words for those songs. And of course it came out of a time of Woodstock and people wanting freedoms and their own choice. Now, We don't need no thought control. Exactly. Where are we next? Okay, for time. I'm going to cover a bit on the event, but I'm going to play a piece that's in it. Listen closely to this. It tells you something that may surprise you.
Who the hell are you?
And don't lie to me.
I don't lie. I don't lie. My name is Madeline Jackson. I'm a journalist. I used to be, till I saw the light. That trying to speak the truth is a waste of time because nobody wants the truth. People don't want the truth. God forbid it would all go down in flames. It's the lies that keep the construct going, don't you see? Spread by the vested interests in the government and the private sector and the churches and the stock exchanges, all fabricating and spinning and telling stories that keep 300 million consumers happy and stupid and spending. Why are you looking at me like I'm crazy? Just stop. I'm not the deluded one. You are.
That was a thing that stood out to me on watching the event again over the past week. It's the lies that keep the construct going. Now, back in 2010, most of us wouldn't be aware of the term the construct. Perhaps most who listen to this show wouldn't be aware that so many organisations would be involved. The churches, the schools, the hospitals, the police, the governments, the military. How times change. Not by them, by us. We've changed. We're looking at things in a completely different light now. And suddenly the picture becomes a whole lot clearer, as you all know. Yes, they'll try to muddy it. But more and more are seen through the lies. I would advise people who've seen the event to go and watch it again. There's a number of things in there that when you watch it now, with the more knowledge you have when you first watched it, will kind of shock you. Now, one of the things about the event was a number of an ET craft of humanoids crash landed in Alaska, and some fled, known as the sleepers. There were able-bodied ones fled, and the ones that were injured were incarcerated by the military and kept there for 66 years, according to the show. Except when they eventually find out there's near 200 of them, some of whom have had children, which was actually forbidden by that leader, who aptly named was called Sophia. I don't think that was a coincidence. And of course the president was black, suggesting it was Obama who was going to announce the ET disclosure, and then a portal event where a plane was going to take him out. Now, by all accounts, Obama was going to announce, so there is some factual stuff contained within it. But then, so was JFK. He went to Roswell, so did Marilyn Monroe. She started talking too much. You know what happened next. the fact that that lady mentioned a construct which was missed by myself at the time, I wasn't too aware of it. I'd heard about it, but wasn't too... it didn't feel part of my truth at that time. And we all learn more and more each day, and then we try and coalesce things into a bigger picture. But I'll tell you what was true about a group here, and it turns out there was 200. There is 200 ET humanoids that have been trapped here for a long time. Whether they're portraying the same group remains to be seen. But the element near the end of the show, where they were talking about bringing 2.5 billion to the planet because theirs was dying, is true. That was being attempted by Marduk. He got stopped. Personally, I don't think we're ready for that yet. I think we need the truth of what they've been doing here, and a time to heal some of the fun and games that a number of ET races has been doing to the human race over thousands of years, not just the Draco. So-called the nice Pleiadians have also messed a lot here. The Pleiadians were the guardians of this planet and sold us out to tech, which allowed some of the other more notorious groups to come in. So this idea that all these love and light Pleiadians are all great and are going to come down and save us is utter bollocks. I'm sorry. They're no more going to save us than the Draco are. The reality is only we save us. That's the way it's got to be. You can't carry on being the children. Right, let's go into where are we for time? So we've had another event in New York. I'm not going to go too much into it because I think it's more important what I say in this piece than that single event. But yet again, we've highlighted this on this show. A van runs into people and kills them. The driver gets out, shouts Allahu Akbar, like anybody's going to hear him in the middle of New York. And the police find ISIS writing. Do they have their own language? People not ask that. What is ISIS writing? Sumerian? Chinese? Yeah. So the police have announced they found ISIS writing in the van. Yeah, right. If someone on a death mission is really going to carry around stuff that's going to implicate him or the group, even if that person was working for ISIS. I mean, do people really believe that? Now, it's not lost on me what day it was. I warned about it last week. October the 31st, Halloween, ritual day. See how they do things? Well, now you're seeing it for yourself. But how many more times did it take for the public to start seeing through this, what is now clear bullshittery? And what's happened now? That's taken the indictments, the Weinstein stuff, and the other investigations out of the public eye. Because now we have 24-hour coverage of an event in New York. Like nothing else is happening again. This is the media and the cabal's version of memory wipes. This is what they're doing. They're memory wiping everybody, so you forget the last incident and the last event. So for the purpose of our listeners' memories, we will remember again. Manchester, the UK, Grenfell Tower fire, the 3 London events, Barcelona, 3 events in France, the Boston Marathon, the Aurora shooting, Sandy Hook, the fires in the Northwest, the fires in California, flooding and wind damage in Florida, Texas and Puerto Rico, not forgetting the Las Vegas event. All of these events have elements in them that have big questions unanswered for us all. Whether we'll ever get the full answers remains to be seen. We certainly won't get it off them. And it's one event, as forecasted, after the other, for the purpose of putting you in a spin to enable their game of mind wars. That's what they're doing. They're playing mind wars on you, and ultimately leading to forgetfulness. I guarantee every listener has forgotten temporarily one of those events I've just read out, or more. Apart from the Boston, Aurora and Sandy Hook, all of them were in the last 12 months. Well, we won't forget. What are clearly deliberate events. And this show is not one for forgetting things. So, yes, the focus on maybe some people died, or maybe some people didn't. Or whether they were actors, or whether it's all a stage show again. But don't forget the other events, because that's what they're trying to do. And don't be donating. It's not going to the people. I'm tired of telling you, none of it goes to the people. Like Corey collecting money. It's not going to him. And people can get upset over that, and I understand that. But how many more times are we going to be duped by the same game? This is where, when people say, well, what can we do? Well, we can stop playing their game. By not buying their drugs, by not donating to their bogus charities, by not signing up for fresh air tokens off a computer with your hard-earned cash. Pedogate. That's a positive thing, although, like I said, it's painful to hear about it. Kind of gets you in the stomach. But it's now reaching epic proportions. So many now are being exposed. But a word of caution. It's been said to me that the real big names will not be charged at this point. That doesn't sit too well with me, as you will know. We'll see. Now, the other story that's been ongoing is the Clinton, Russia. I was going to put this in the intel, but for those of you with long memories and cosmic voice, I outed about the uranium deal back then, and who was involved in it. Quite why it's taken 2 years to be fully out is beyond me. One of the disturbing things in the event was the ETs who planned to escape wanted uranium. Things that make you go, So Clinton did the uranium wand with Russia, and that was what all the fun and games was going on in Oregon, Lavoy, Finnegan and all that stuff. But apparently there is a possibility that there may be arrests next week. What will take place is the arrests of Manafort and probably Podesta, but they apparently are not the real target. The real targets are Hillary, Eric Holder, Rosenstein. Now, Hillary, as you already know, has fled. She knew what was coming. She knew the noose was tightened. But again, another word of a caution is Obama may get away with it. Apparently, Mr. Trump is adamant about protecting former presidents. Again, that doesn't sit too well with me. So if that's the case, and I don't know whether it's 100% true or not, but if that's the case, then it's not only Obama, is it? Who's not going to be dealt with. It's idiot Bush, senile Bush, and Clinton. I hope that changes, because the people are starting to find out the roles that these people have played and the lives that those people have destroyed in this country, all for their own power and their own self-importance and their own wealth. And quite frankly, I've put 2 fingers up to the American public for the last 20, 30 years, minimum. You could argue you could go back 50 years. 54 to be precise. So it appears at this point, although it may change, is that the Bushes, Bill Clinton and Obama, and even in the JFK stuff, Lyndon Johnson also, because he was involved in that along with Bush Senior or Sheriff Senior. And I don't think the JFK files will contain anything that's useful for we the people. It'll be another, well, we released everything we had. It won't. At this point, I'm being told it won't have the main names. Alright, we're getting up to the top of the hour again. The next 2 songs are by a band from where I was brought up, my hometown of Liverpool in England, and a band called The Mighty War. John Bryan, who's also a resident of Liverpool, passed this song on to me, and I'm going to play next. And it's all about the heart of Liverpool. Now, Liverpool, for those that don't know, was the major port in the world, going back in the 16, 17, 1800s. and even early part of the 1900s. But it was a city that was grown on the back of turmoil, anger, a slave trade, big business. Liverpool grew exponentially because of the slave trade and the shipping. But there was, for those who visited that city, it's got a raft of high-end buildings, all near the docks, where all the established people, the shipping merchants, live. And yeah, despite being the biggest port, the biggest trader in the world, its people lived in absolute poverty until World War II. Even after World War II, many Brits, the last item where the Brits were on rations, so you got a ticket to be able to go and buy X amount of bacon or X amount of lard, as it was called back then. I think it's saturated fats or whatever it is, and butter, and there were certain items you weren't allowed to buy. Everything was rations. The last ration ticket that was handed in was 1963. 18 years, certain items in Britain were still on rations, or you weren't allowed to buy. That's the price the people paid for fighting their war. And so Liverpool grew exponentially out of the Irish slave trade, the Eastern European. They all landed in Liverpool, and also the Africans. Not collected by white people, as commonly known, but collected and sold by their own colour. Oops. See, it's often labelled a white man's crime, but as history has shown us, the truth is rarely revealed. Slave trade and the hideousness nature of that's now called trafficking. Same thing. Was participated in by all countries and all colours. It wasn't just the blacks that were hideously treated. The Irish weren't treated too well over here either. The native people were treated even less well. Let's get it right. And so Liverpool has grown into, because of all that dark energy, it's quite an anger city. People get angry rather easily. It needs a collective healing. But what comes out of anger became rebellion. And the people of the city are known for being rebels, which is why the UK government has done its utmost to shut that region down, cut off its funding, cut off the jobs going there, leave the people in poverty, leave the people on benefits where they have no control. But the people fight back. It's a very creative city. Of course, people remember the Beatles and various other musicians that came out of Liverpool. Stan Laurel, famous Laurel and Hardy, came out of Liverpool. The comedians, numbers of them. a lot more funny than I am. Liverpool was known for its humour. So I'm going to play a song for John Bryan, and the song is about my hometown, and it's called A Heart as Big as Liverpool. Bye for now. Hi all, and welcome back to the final hour. A couple of more pieces I need to cover before we go into some questions. One of the things that was stage managed this week was Wendy Williams on, I don't even know which show it was, and the fake fainting on stage. Of course, what was she dressed up as? Just thought about this during the music break. Lady Liberty. Maybe that was a warning that they were going to attack New York. Maybe we've had that warning. It may be a future event. They often portray it in films, the towers going down, and also Lady Liberty. Whoever that may be. It's not who we think it is. That's been covered in previous shows. But they put that stuff right in your face. And it's a word of warning to the people of New York to be on watch, and hopefully that will prevent any further shenanigans going on there. So New York, and now this latest event, terrorists, and why? Well, the reason why is fairly simple. This is how it works. Because for over 70 years, America has invaded 81 countries that were for strategic purposes, removing governments, claim lands and resources, and ultimately then use the anger of those people to set up and fund terror groups. With the people they have left with nothing, and then who are then offered inducements to form a group to attack the country who left them homeless, jobless, and losing family and friends. If America was getting bombed by, let's just say, Britain, wouldn't you, if you had no home, you'd lost your job, you'd lost family and friends, wouldn't you want to go and attack Britain? It's the same thing. They don't know, or those people don't know, that it's nothing to do with the people. Some will have worked it out by now with the power of the internet. That the average American person hates what's going on in their name. So this is how ISIL, ISIS, Al-Qaeda and Taliban were all formed. The very people in positions who orchestrated America as the world's bully boys are the same people paying these so-called terrorists to now attack on our soil. So, yes, you people with your badges of dishonour, yes, you lot in Langley, NSA, DHS, MI6, KGB and Mossad, all of you are responsible for this mess. And it's time somebody took over the media and allowed the people to tell the truth. So the previous story where Trump may not out former presidents, that doesn't sit well with me at all. If he's worried about the dignity of the country and protecting the image of the country, our image around the world is shattered. Whether people like that idea or not, the reality is people see America as a den of iniquity. Warmongers who just steal people's land and bomb people's homes. That's the image we now have. Not the image we had in the 70s, when I was growing up in England. It's the image we have now. And we can all deny it, all we like, but it's the truth. I'll have a guest coming on my show in sometime after the 10th, who in his recent video said that everything about America that was unpleasant. He doesn't live in America. And he will be coming on to discuss things about many topics. And that guy is Max Egan. So look forward to him coming on the show sometime this month. But if Mr. Trump and people in high places really wish to drain the swamp, that has to include all. And I mean all. We can't go forward with selective swamp draining. Because those people will just regroup and start again. So it's time Mr. Trump and his team, in my opinion, is quit mucking around with the lower level goons and go after the very building who, even by their own documents released by the government, have committed numerous atrocities on the American people and the rest of the world. Operation Northwoods, for those of you unfamiliar, they planned to kill American citizens in a false flag to blame it on Cuba. Sound familiar? Paperclip brought high-level Nazis in who had been part of killing 420,000 Americans and brought them to our shores and protected them and gave them high-level jobs. MK Ultra, Project Phoenix in Vietnam, torturing people with the most heinous things. Hotel California, collecting prisoners of war, American prisoners of war, and missing in action from Vietnam, bringing them back to America, putting them in underground bases and performing heinous experiments on them, whilst telling their families they were dead. You can check out, but you can never leave. Indeed. So if Trump wants to drain the swamp, there's the very building in Virginia who, by the government's own papers released, has detailed hundreds of crimes against the American people and the citizens around the world. This is where you drain the swamp. That is the elephant in the room. It always was. Time for some real action, methinks. United Nations. I'll remind you of a quote by Mr. Kissinger back in May of 1992. He said, "Today, Americans would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told there was an outside threat from beyond, whether real or not. that threatened our very existence. It is then that all peoples of the world will pledge with world leaders to deliver them from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by their world government. Henry Kissinger in 1992. This is the same guy who called the American military top brass pawns. Oops. You're just pawns. Well, it's time those pawns got off their backsides and came and rescued this country once and for all, and rid people like the Kissingers and the Bushes and the others, so we can get on with our lives. But this week, and this is a word of warning, on Saturday, Antifa, another arm of the very elephant in the room building, yes, it's them again, the ones who created Black Lives Matter, the ones who are now funding the Crips, now known as MS-13, the ones who are now funding ISIS. You don't need me to tell you that. Various governments around the world have told you who's funding ISIS. But this week, on Wednesday, the United States is announcing its support for a set of principles that give a green light for UN peacekeeping troops and police to use force to protect civilians in armed conflicts. US Ambassador Samantha Power told a high-level UN meeting on Wednesday, focusing on the responsibility to protect civilians, that the United States was proud and humbled to join 28 other countries that have pledged to abide by the 18 pledges. UN peacekeepers from these 29 countries are required to act in cases where civilians are in danger. The Kigali principles are designed to make sure that civilians are not abandoned by the international community again, she said, recalling how UN peacekeepers left Rwanda before 1994 genocide and Srebrenica before the 1995 massacre. Well, the UN are already here. They've been here for a long time. Some of them found to their cost. If they play games too much, they pay with their life. Those of you in the agencies that listen will know what I'm referring to. And they continue to play games with certain people. The same outcome will happen again. We don't want or need UN troops on our soil, and it's time the military saw it as an act of war and removed them once and for all. Because what you'll find is those countries have a load of Middle Eastern people in the UN so-called peacekeepers. The same ones that we've bombed into oblivion. That's a recipe for disaster, is it not? So, if any Americans are listening to this, don't go anywhere near any Antifa protests or whatever else they're calling it. They're going to stage events there. that if it gets out of hand, which is what they're trying to do, they'll bring in the UN. That's what they're telling you. Stay away, don't engage, and be safe. There's a lot of fun in games. I'm not going to sugarcoat this show if it's not there to be sugarcoated. If there's good news, I'll put it out. If there's not good news, I'll put that out. Because we need to know what is going on as much as possible. There's a lot of bullshit on the internet now. This show has proven to have information that's largely correct. Over time, virtually most of it has been proven correct. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer. But we have to be aware of what's going on. We have to be aware there's UN so-called peacekeeping troops. They're not peacekeeping at all. They're doing the bidding for the Rothschilds. Et al. The Bushes are in with the Crips, now known as MS-13. Unbelievable. Right in our own back door, no longer to be blamed on Muslims, Russians, Chinese, and whichever other boogeymen they come up with. This is in our face, on our soil. And Trump and his team and the military have to now act. It's as simple as that. There was a video about white privilege, or perceived as white privilege, where a number of people from a college or a university were asked to take part in a race for $100, and you step forward at the behest of if you answered a certain question correctly or not. Did your parents pay for this? Did you have this, or did you have that? And people kept making steps forward, and there was a load of, largely, I have to say, black people left. But the idea that the whites are privileged is wrong. None of us are privileged. Only the elites and their satanic minions in Hollywood are privileged. Let's get it right. And they're not all white people either. Like the story before about the white slavery, the black slavery, and their involvement. If we're going to get out of this mess, what we're in, the biggest thing that has to change is the mindset. This is where we, the people, lack a mindset that things will just magically change overnight. We're all going to ascend and everything will be inch perfect, and we're all going to live happy lives with prosperity packages and Nasara. It doesn't work that way. Could it work that way? Yes. Would it be beneficial? No. Because we have to learn to think and act differently going forward. So the perception of white privilege could be seen as being correct. It's all about perspective, isn't it? But the idea that the black community have no money when it's awash with money from drugs. I know some people won't like that idea. Oh, you're stereotyping. No, it's not stereotyping. It is what it is. Too often we've hid behind political correctness. It is what it is. There's a lot of drugs in a lot of the black communities. There's a lot of crime in a lot of the black communities. There's a lot of ghettos in the black communities, when there's no real need for ghettos anywhere. It's about taking pride in your own community. The same applies with the Hispanic people and the Mexicans. Why are they living in poverty when they've got drug gangs with more money than sense stacked in warehouses? Why aren't they giving it out to their people? Why aren't the black people giving it out to their people and sharing? Everybody knows I'm not a lover of drugs. But if you're going to make vast amounts, and bear in mind, 60 to 70% of cash in this country is due to drug money. So why is there people in the black community running round in fancy cars and all bling and looking at the people of their own colour with nothing? Isn't that what the cabal do? They collect everything and keep it to themselves and bugger everybody else. The Mexicans and their gangs, the Hispanics, it's not just Mexico, it's Puerto Rico, it's Colombia, it's Venezuela, it's Honduras, Guatemala, all awash in drug money, and yet none of it goes to their own people. Yet again, just a few collect it. That's no different to the cabal. That type of behaviour has to change, and that can only come from us. So it doesn't matter what colour you are. We're all showing examples of copying the cabal behaviour. Make huge amounts of money on drug dealing or whatever else it is, and keep it to yourself. Well, why don't you improve your own community and your own people? We did a post before about Cassandra. Can you imagine her watching that? She would go, I told you so. They'll copy the same thing. They'll exhibit the same behaviour. That is what we, all of us, have to change. If we're going to step into the void of the cabal and want this country and this world to be a better place, each and every one of us has got to be a better person. So, collecting warehouses full of American dollars and drugs and just storing it there and not giving it out to your own people is a dereliction of your own duty. Those people who have the big money from the drugs, be it black, white or Hispanic, had an opportunity to share that wealth around, but chose not to. The cabal have an opportunity to share that wealth around, but chose not to. Is there any difference? Whilst white people may be perceived as being privileged, it's an illusion. We're all slaves. We're all slaves to the system. We're all slaves to many of us are enslaved to our own mind and mindset and programming. If we want a better society, we have to change the mindset of how we operate. The military have to change their mindset once they've cleaned house, that war equals money. When the military can provide so much more without the need for war, like rebuilding, like cleaning up the oceans that they've messed up, cleaning up the Middle East that they've messed up, cleaning up Nevada and other sites where they detonated nuclear weapons, and the islands they've detonated nuclear weapons, cleaning up. That creates money, that creates jobs. That's then working in a better way towards society. The engineers, they can come back home and fix all the bridges, 80,000 in ruin or at the point of collapse in America alone. You have to change the mindset. And in my opinion, that's going to be our biggest hurdle going forward. Like I said previous, the cabal could step down at midnight tonight and nothing changes. If the drug gangs are going to continue to collect money like it's going out of fashion and not sharing it with their own people, then we're really no better than them, are we? There's no excuse to have ghettos when there's money awash in those communities. Can't keep denying it. So, white privilege is to a point, but it's also white people who are paying the price. It's one of the questions, did you have jobs? Did your parents have jobs? And most of them stepped forward. But those alleged privileged people are the ones that paid the taxes, the ones that funded the welfare system. Is that a privilege? Now, one of the great things about America is its diversity. To make America great, that diversity has to increase. And we have to come together as one. Not perceive that white people are privileged, or that black people are just slaves. Because the reality is we're all slaves. Unless we change the mindset. And that includes governments, where they're not working just to get some backhanders on the already exorbitant wages that they're earning compared to the rest of us. Like their job is more important. It's just a job the same as everybody else. Half the time they don't even turn up. Or putting themselves on executive boards where they're making more money, that then dictates the policies and politics. That doesn't provide anything for the benefit of the people. Again, a change of mindset is required. The police, a change of mindset that the public are not the enemy, and we're not just there to be fined or tasered or shot. A change of mindset is required right across the board. That's the way we all go forward. Right, that went on for a bit longer than I thought, but Maybe some people found that helpful. Maybe some people didn't like it. Maybe some people thought it was racist. No, it's not racist, it's facts. Can't keep denying the truth because it may upset a certain colour, whoever that colour may be. If things are not right, they have to be said as not being right. And political correctness has been a deliberate hamper with that, where you can't say this and you can't say that because people will pull either the race card or the gender card out, or now the transgender card out. It is what it is. If people are not acting in the right way, it doesn't matter what colour they are. What matters is it has to be fixed. And we can't carry on the way we are and wanting things to change by doing the same things. I would like to see more of the many, and I know there's loads of lovely black people who work hard for their community. Go and support those people. There's no need for your town to be a ghetto. None whatsoever. All it takes is a few dozen people going round and cleaning up and showing a bit of pride in your area. Same applies to the Hispanics. Same applies to the white regions where it's not too tidy. Show pride. Questions. I'll see what. Not much time for questions tonight, but I'll pick a few out. So the Chinese elders' gold-backed currency is not making its way as our new currency. No. That's the RV, and it's bullshit. They're trying to pull it again tomorrow. It'll fail again. Complete and utter waste of time, like Groundhog Day. Which is the positive group, the white dragon or the red dragon? Answer, neither. They're both a pile of bullshit. Period. Said this before. There's only three, but there's only three real dragon groups. All of them are or were ran by the reptilian group, not the Draco, the reptilian group, back in time. Even the Red Dragon himself, Mr. Ambassador, fake ambassador for that, admitted that the head of the group was a reptilian. The White Dragon group is Neil Keenan, Benjamin Fulford and some unknown Japanese guy. 3 people, it was all a ruse. There's no ninjas, nothing. They have nothing to offer, and except sell drugs. And I know certain people won't like that, but it's true. You want to go and check Neil Keenan's criminal record in the 1990s and see what he was done for. Maybe that's why it's called the White Dragon. It's the White Powder Dragon. What about our future with this thing and chips by implanting? Is it going on? Do you know if that is going to stop also? Will it make us a hybrid? Looks like it goes on and on. That's their ultimate goal. That's what the Cassandra letter tells you. You'll get a cybernetic future unless we all stand up and say we're not buying it. I suspect, and I don't know this to be 100% true, I suspect they will use it on Social Security one day. Let's hope it doesn't go that far and we shut it down, because the choice of not getting Social Security and being implanted will be hard on some. But these are the type of things that these clowns will do. Of course, you had the idiots in Wisconsin or Michigan, that company signing up for it, and people in Sweden volunteering for it. Yeah, come and have an implant under your skin. You'll be able to open the office doors by just swiping your hand. Really. And that takes, that saves you about 2 seconds of your life, but in the meantime you've got a chip that you've no idea of its capabilities stuck inside you for the rest of your life. That may decide to, like a warranty on a washing machine or a dishwasher, it implodes the day after the warranty expires. We've all seen that. So hopefully it won't go to extreme choices. Maybe that's what it needs to wake a whole heap of people up and go, you know what, I've had enough of this. Question, I'm a bit surprised to hear that the Rothschilds are still attempting to influence the House of Lords, as I thought, as you stated in a previous show, that they were being rounded up and under arrest in a number of countries. Well, that is still ongoing. To get to the bigger ones takes a bit more force. More and more of forces, as I understand, are now coalescing, and maybe one day we'll have something to celebrate. But getting rid of the Rothschilds is one problem. We have a whole heap of others. So it's important. Getting rid of all the clowns is important to me. We are approaching that time of year again, November the 11th, of remembrances of our fallen in the armed forces during the various conflicts. On such remembrances, I think we should perhaps include the fallen of both combatants in the conflicts, inclusive of our opponents as well as those of our own nation. This could disseminate the empathic acceptance by everyone that all of our armed personnel of whichever country perform their service solely upon the orders of their respective governments, agencies and associated propagandist agencies. We almost always hear of only heinous acts perpetrated by an opposing force and their intelligence agencies, while little is heard of the conduct of our own in other lands. And yet, one has to question who is behind the various governments, who is pulling the strings that places the members of these agencies in such difficult positions as having little alternative but to follow orders. Yes, we should remember everyone that's died. An American life is no more important than Iraqis. Some people might not like that, but it's true. American life's not even more important than Israel or Britain or any other country. On the day we have the peoples of all countries feeling empathy for the dead, no matter which country they're from or which religion they choose to be ruled by, is the day humanity have stepped into the adult world. Oh, so many died, thousands of miles away. Doesn't matter to me. Yes, it does. Or yes, it should. That's playing the bubble world again, thinking it can't happen to you. Those bubbles are getting smaller and smaller as time ticks on. What is planned for November 4th? Keep hearing something's going to happen, and Philadelphia is one of the cities that would be involved. the group, which has no formal organisational structure and is best defined as a tactic associated with protesting against the threat of fascism, which is ironic, has largely been blamed from everything from the deadly mass shooting in Vegas to covert collaborations with the ISIS group, now called Antifa, is apparently plotting a civil war in the United States that will begin on November the 4th. Yes, that's most of the rhetoric being put out by Alex Jones and his sidekick, Paul Joseph Watson, I have to say. They like to beat war drums. Antifa has to be watched because they were part of the Charlottesville Fun and Games. The protest, or the meaning of the protest, is completely irrelevant. Like Black Lives Matter, it wasn't about Black Lives Matter. It was about organised protest, staged events to cause incidents that they're hoping will be escalated so we get to a point where they roll out UN troops. And that's why I'm asking people not to engage. Maybe find out or follow some of the ones who were in the protests home and then ask them kindly who paid them. That's the real value of being an activist. You don't have to be violent, you just have to be clever. Who put them up to it? And like certain other people, like that red-headed bitch in London with the fake bandage round their head, find out where they live and shame them out of the community. Let them know that what they're taking part in is an overall agenda of full-on genocide in this country. And do they still want to go ahead with it? You can talk one out of it, they can go back and talk others out of it. If no one wants to play ball with the agencies, no one wants to take the blood money, then they have nothing left. Catalonia, sorry about that, Dan. I'll have to leave that for another week as time's run out. Where are we? Will there really be arrests as the cabal? Drake has said the military is not committing to that now. It seems we'll all be targeted soon. It's a possibility. Maybe at the final hour there will be a McFly moment in certain military groups, and they remember that they're human and come and protect us like they're paid to do. Right, do tattoos and piercings open up demonic portals into your body? It's a possibility. You're piercing your auric or PSI field, that leaves holes. So unless you're shielding, that's where they can get in. One more question. Who are the backdrop people? Synthetics. Short and simple. Right, apologies to the ones who I didn't get questions to. I know there's a drill going on. I don't think anything will happen with it, but we always have to be aware where they're taking place and be on alert. That's the best I can say about that. I've got no intel to suggest it will go any further, but you just never know with some of these clowns of what we're dealing with. And so sometimes by putting the warning out, it's not to put you in fear, because you should never be in fear. Just be wary. Fear is their game, it's not ours. Right, I hope you enjoyed the show. I'll be back on Sunday with an evening with Thomas, with Alan James from one of the OYM lads. He's going to be telling his story, or part of his story, and he wants to talk about a lot of things in general, so it should be a good show. Now, remember, for the American listeners, the clocks go back on Saturday night, so the show will be 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, but remember the clocks go back. So the clocks go back an hour. I'm going to honour Drake and put my clock back 2 weeks. I know he likes that. So we'll be back on Sunday. We'll have, and then next week, and then by sometime after the 10th, later on this month, we will have Max Egan on. That will be a good chat. Right. I think it's about time I read that piece again. I was looking at it. I haven't read it for a while. If you lead life in love and care, you will prevail. If you lead life in fear and anger, you will fail. Feel free for you to be the person you wish to be, not the person who conforms to what others want them to be. You are a multi-dimensional being operating simultaneously on many levels. You are not here to conform. You are not here to be stifled. You are not here to be enslaved, and you are not here to be abused or to compete with your friends, family or neighbours. You are here to be the best you can be and do so as the crown of creation. Now go out with the confidence of who and what you are and accept